about the election results. I wasn't expecting, but got some comments about how people are worried, and rightfully so, right? But I'm not saying this to be like anti-Trump or anything, but it's like even if the other party won, even if a third party won, there will always be people who worry about the consequences of an election. And this isn't to say like elections have no consequences. Like they definitely have consequences, right? And on Tumblr, there's a blog that I've been following for a very long time, and it's called Dead Presidents. And this person is basically like a presidential historian, kind of a freelancer. Kind of like a really, really, really intensely interested about presidential history and everything. So this person always have said, and I've followed this person for ages, right? Many, many years. And every election time, this person always says elections have consequences, right? And if you're interested, you can read more about how the elections have consequences, how they have historically had consequences in the past. But I'm not really here to talk about American politics because I'm not even American, and but I want to talk a little bit about what people are worrying about, right? My friend Malachi is saying, rough night, worried about the regulatory state more than anything, and the Department of Education, deportations, and hopefully he gets about as far as he did with the wall. And my another friend, Divine Necromancer 17, says, I told myself I wouldn't let the election affect me, and then when the results came in, I realized how much it could affect my family and friends. So, that's the really tough to swallow pill, right? Because the results that we are seeing today is directly related to how we have conducted our lives in the past. And so if based on the results of the current election, it wasn't really like a close contest. It was basically a very big victory for the Republican, right? But people may have very compelling arguments about why you need to vote a certain way, but if that is not really well understood by the mass, right? And it's sort of the politicians' jobs to kind of get into the minds of the mass. And so you could argue that the Republican Party did a really great job in, convincing people's minds. And you know what? Regardless of what the Democratic Party's agenda was, ultimately it did not succeed in swaying the people's influence. But why is that? And people say, wow, just all we have to do, we don't even have to be noble anymore, we don't even have to be like we don't even have to try, all we need to do is propaganda, and all we need to do is just like bully. But the thing is, while that's a kind of a tongue-in-cheek, kind of an angry tongue-in-cheek kind of a statement, to some degree that's right? To some degree, it worked excellently well. But we have to get to, in order to truly learn from this, not that we have to learn from it, but if you are the type of person who wants to reflect on these types of experiences, then a really good thing to ask is, why does bullying work? Why does, making other people feel like crap work? Why have we drifted apart in such a big kind of difference we have come to completely not understand, right? Because that's a lot of the narrative that's going around. I don't understand how this happened. And I think that is precisely kind of the problem, right? That it feels so foreign to you now. Like the people who are not in agreement with you politically, they have drifted so far apart from you, you have a completely difficult time understanding eye to eye. So while you could argue that they are not seeing the important issue, the really tough to swallow pill is you are also failing to see things from their point of view. And so, this is the underlying reason for why bullying works. It's because we have drifted so apart, we have started to see each other as enemies. We don't understand. They feel foreign to us. And but not every foreigner is like hostile, right? But when it comes to a two-party system, does it help to befriend the opposite party, or does it help to antagonize? It helps to antagonize, right? But really, when you look at it from outside the political spectrum, is there a reason that they need to be so against each other on everything? Bipartisan support for something is like it does exist, but it's so rare, right? Because everything is a contesting kind of a point. But outside of the political landscape, it's so easy to see that not everything has to be so head-on opposite of each other, right? And to close this gap, it's really important that we don't get into the argument of they need to change their minds. It has to come down to I am not understanding something. And I am not empathizing, which is, again, a really hard to swallow pill. There's a Buddhist saying related to these kind of things about emphasizing the importance of harmony and thinking as a one, right? Suppose I hurt my hand, right? Ow! And then my right hand is like really taking good care of their left hand. Does the right hand expect thanks and gratitude from the left hand? No, that seems nonsensical. Is the left hand rude for not thanking the right hand? No, doesn't make sense. Why? Because we are one. When I have a bellyache, my hands naturally do this. When I burn my hand, my ears naturally provide the cold temperature. Why? Because if this hurts, you're not like, oh, that's just the finger that's hurting, but fuck that finger, I hate that finger. No, it's your finger, it's you, right? And that is the point of view that is missing from so many people's lives. And we're not just talking about politics here. At work, and thinking about different classes of people, capitalism, and your neighbors, your parents, people you don't have a good relationship with. We have gotten so used to thinking in an isolated chamber and looking at everything from a me versus everyone else kind of a perspective, and we are losing sight of the fact that we are all collectively in this together. So, now that we have identified this, the really, really important thing now is this. What causes us? What causes this divide between us? And what makes it so natural? And when you sit down and think about this, you will find some culprits that make us naturally that naturally lead us to think this way. So, for example, like we're talking politics, and like, oh, I don't understand why another person would vote for that. Okay, so why don't you understand? Because my perspective is like, because everybody should have equal rights, or like just for the sake of being fair. Of course, women shouldn't be able to abort babies. There's like they are already living. That's basically like murder. Okay, but why don't you see the other point of view? Like, okay, so why do you think the other side is opposite is arguing for the opposite? I don't know. Why don't you know? Because you do know a lot about your point of view, but why don't you know as much about the other perspective? Well, and you can come to see, like, I do spend a lot of time online. But when the other point of views come up, I tend to dismiss it. I don't spend a lot of time looking at it as if it was supporting my perspective. So you can see how the polarization and the biases inherent in social media really aid in speeding up the polarization process, right? And it's not just social media, traditional news networks as well. And how we have come to see the world, how we form the narratives in our head. Okay, so I have a very strong opinion about this. So how did this opinion become really strong? And then you get to see, oh, it became strong because I was, largely entertained by people with strong opinions. And so you see that, then you understand, oh, wait, is this how, radicalism works? Because it's a strong point of view, and that sounds more convincing than somebody who isn't so radical, right? So the more you get to identify where these types of influences come from, the more you can intentionally tone those down. The more you can actually do something about your lack of understanding across the aisle. And that is the human experience, right? You hated somebody because they, ignored you. And then it turns out they were hard of hearing. Oh my god. You ask somebody for a quick $5 and then they don't have, and then you saw their money, but then they don't give it to you. Oh my god, that's a really stingy guy. But turns out, they're on, a rent assistance and food stamps, and they just got that so that they can pay somebody else. Then you're like, oh man. You see somebody, and you're like, oh, in college, and you're like, oh, let's blow some steam, let's go party, and then this person just looks at you like you're crazy, like, why aren't you studying? And then you feel bad, like, wow, that guy's a really dick. Well, I mean, who cares? He doesn't want to party, I want to party. And then you later on learn that his family, entire family, sold all of the, property just so this person can study. And a lot rests on their shoulders. And you're like, oh, I didn't know that. And just like that, when you understand, you come to see that the other people aren't that crazy. They're just like us, but they're just really, we're just in a deep state of misunderstanding each other. So, in yesterday's video, I focused more about the power of, the power that we have. We don't have to live in America. And we don't have to live in areas where the American influence is high. Yeah, of course you have to learn new language. Of course you have to settle in the new culture if you don't want to live in America. But I'm saying we are still in control of our lives. And if they take away the woman's right, and I feel fiercely about not being in support of it, then I can take myself to the front lines of demonstration, and I can be arrested for doing that. If that's what it takes, I am in complete agency of it. Of course, is it nice if I don't have to do that? Yes, it's preferable. But when it comes down to, the time to choose, where do my principles stand? If I'm clear on that, then regardless of what happens in the world, I can still be on my path. Sometimes it'll make things easier. Sometimes the world would make it harder. But in the end, I am responsible for the life that I live. I am responsible for the actions that I perform in this world. And today, I want to focus a little bit about trying to get to understand the people you don't understand. Because I've seen a lot of that today. And yesterday, to be honest, too.